I recently had a guy that subscribed to my video newsletter. And when you guys subscribe to my newsletter, usually a couple of days afterwards, I'll send a message saying, hey, welcome to the subscription. And I ultimately want to make materials that are about you and your dating life. So let me know like one thing that you're struggling with in your dating life, and I'll be happy to make a video about it. So this guy actually wrote me back, but he says, look, Harry, I like you and I think you're a cool guy, but I don't think you will have any answers for this. Anyhow, I'm 41 years old, been with a lot of women in my life. I also make well over $100K a year, and I'm fit and have my stuff well together. The bottom line is, as far as I can see, nobody is getting laid or having fun on dating. I do not go to bars and clubs, and cold approach is honestly a joke, even though I still do it from time to time. That leads to the worst place, which is online, like online dating. He says, I am old school and cannot stand how people live their life through the phones. In online dating or whatever, you experience more games and scams than you could imagine. Nobody really wants to meet up, and the women just simply want validation. To me, it's a total waste of time, and I just do not see a way around this. So I really thought that his message was interesting, and if you watch this back, thank you for writing me. So I'm going to go through this guy's message, but I want you to notice that in the course of his message, he uses a lot of language that puts things in absolutes, as in all people are like this, the way this version of dating only results in this kind of results. And these are the kind of thought processes that can lead you to have limited success in dating. And so what I'm gonna do is I'll go back over his message and stop at parts to really help you understand how it is that this thought process can be detrimental, and more importantly, how it can be so untrue if you're willing to really look at the world around you, all right? So he starts off, he says, I'm 41 years old. I am also now 41. He says, I've been with a lot of women in my life, and he makes 100K a year. He's fit, has stuff together. So basically, he's pointing this out because he's saying that based on his current stats, he should be a prime candidate to have dating success. 100K a year, that's six figures. He's fit. That means he's got the six pack, stuff well together. He's got the life where he can support himself and somebody else. So he has in his head, all the checkbox that women should check off of their list. It says, based on these things, this is a guy that I should be able to get with long-term, right? So then he says, as far as I can see, nobody's getting laid. Nobody's getting laid whatsoever. Now, here's what I want you to do. Anytime you yourself have an absolutist thought about a particular area of the dating world, right? Ask yourself the question, is this an absolute truth, or is there evidence that this is false? So if nobody was getting laid, for example, no kids would be being born right now. There'd be no pregnant women out there. There'd be no new moms ever. Because the only way that kids typically get here, for the most part, outside of egg donation and what they do in the clinic, most people are still banging in order to have kids, which means women are out there also banging, which means that people are in fact getting laid, all right? So have we now disproven that absolute thought? Yes, we have. He says, nobody's having fun on dating. Is that true? Well, I know in my personal life that when I'm dating somebody and we're going out to dinners, we're spending time together, we're hooking up, we're playing video games together, et cetera, that I'm having a good time, right? Obviously, in relationships, there are going to be hard times here and there, whether it's, you guys have ideas that are conflicting with each other's, or you guys have your own turmoil, whether it's like your stuff at work's happening, somebody's parent dies. Like there are things that can make the aspects of a relationship not so fun, or in dating as well. But overall, ideally, if you're building a connection with somebody, it indicates that there's a level of fun there that is happening. Are people still getting together? Yes. Are people still getting married? Yes. Do people still look like they're genuinely happy when they're walking in the park holding hands with each other? Yes. So the idea that nobody whatsoever is having fun is not true. All right. Now, with his experience, what could very well be happening is he's not having fun dating, and therefore he's projecting out, I'm not having fun dating, therefore just across the board, nobody else is having fun. And I did a previous video about cognitive bias, about how if you already believe a thing, then you're going to look out into the world and try to find examples and proof of the things that you think being true. So if he's not having a fun time dating, he's going to now look up other examples out there that give proof that people aren't having fun dating. And it's very easy to find it. You can go on YouTube and find a litany of people, for example, both men and women, complaining about how dating sucks and how their ex cheated on them or their ex was like stealing money from them. Like, it's very easy to find examples of that. But is that the whole truth? Does that mean that therefore everybody is not having fun when they're dating? And the answer is no. If you're finding the right people to connect with, and you know, and you're in the things you need to do to build attraction and keep attraction, and you're with somebody that has a level head and also wants what's best for you and is doing their part to build attraction and keep attraction, then it's very, very easy to have fun dating. But if you don't know those things, it's going to make it hard for you to show up in a relationship in a way that's going to allow you to have fun or that other person. All right. So these are things that can be learned. This is why if you go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and click on the coaching tab or click on the products tab, you can find ways or connect with me to help you figure out how to do the things you need to do to ultimately be a more fun dating partner. Continuing, he says, I do not go to bars and clubs, and cold approach is honestly a joke, even though I still do it from time to time. So what he's saying is that, again, there's nobody that ever meets at a bar or club and ever gets together, and cold approaching, it never works. And I've told a story on here several times. In fact, I actually interviewed the guy on my previous podcast that I did, whereby he said his now wife, he was walking next to what's now known as crypto.com center, but it used to be Staples Center. He was walking downtown in LA, and he walked by this woman, stopped her and said, hey, I don't want to interrupt your day, but I just think that you're like the most beautiful woman I've seen out here, and I'd absolutely love it if I could get your number and take you out sometime. And she said yes. Now, you might say, but Harry, that's an outlier story. Well, for one, hypothetically, if it only happened to that dude, the fact is that cold approach worked. But the other thing is that I think that men don't take into account that there are actually many ways and many varieties of doing cold approach that they may not even consider being cold approach. For example, if I go to a friend's party and I see a girl there that I don't know, well, because I'm in an environment where I'm comfortable, I'm already feeling like I can talk to anybody and it'd be no big deal. So I might walk up on this girl that I don't know and be like, hey, are you enjoying the party? How do you know so-and-so? Blah, blah, blah. Guess what? That's cold approach. It might not feel like it in the moment because you're thinking by proxy of my friend, I feel like I could kind of know her already, but that is a cold approach. And so the reality is most people still meet by way of being introduced to other people or by way of meeting somebody at your job, which is definitely a cold approach. So but ruling out cold approach and these other things, when you have an absolutist thought, what you do effectively is say all these ways of meeting women are effective. They don't work for me, therefore they work for nobody, and why should I try them? And when you think like that, what happens is you now cut yourself off from the possibility that you doing any of these type of things could actually get you a woman. So he says cold approach doesn't work, right? He says that leads to the worst place, which is online. We're going to online dating. He says, I'm old school and cannot stand how people live their life through the phones and online dating or whatever. You experience more games and scams than you can imagine. Nobody wants to meet up. The women just want validation. It's a waste of time. Well, I clearly have been on here many times as spewing the wonderful benefits of doing online dating, especially as an introvert. I had a great success being able to actually attract women online and then take them out and meet them up for dates and various other things. And I've told stories on here about the friends of mine that I actually helped them create profiles. And now one of them's married and one of them's been in a 2.5 to 3 year relationship with the other one. And that all stemmed from what? From online dating. But you might think, but most guys don't have success on there. What I'll tell you guys, you do not have the benefits of being able to cut out any form of meeting women that is available to you. So whether it's a networking party, whether it's online dating, whether it's, I don't know, if suddenly like women like to go fishing on boats and that was the only place to meet them, I would say, hey, go get yourself a pass on a boat and meet women. But the point is that each of these avenues that he talked about cold approaching, about online dating, about meeting bars and clubs, like he's saying none of that'll work. But then the question becomes, if none of that stuff works, how are you supposed to meet women? And so again, what I stress is what this thought process is doing is basically what's happening is this. Your subconscious is saying you've had a tough row of it. You can't figure out women. You don't know how to do it. And so you have one or two choices. Either you can admit that to yourself and think maybe it's because of how I am and that I need to change my approach. I need to change some of the habits I have about myself. I need to change the ways in which women are experiencing me in these moments and see what that's about. So that way I can get the results that I want, or I just give it up. And if you're going to give it up, now your brain has to convince you why it's a good idea to give up dating. So you have to start saying stuff like, well, that one time you hit up that girl at a bar and she like laughed in your face or whatever. Like, yeah, see, that's why you don't hit up girls at bars. Those couple of times where you matched with the girl online and you said hi to her and then she just ghosted you. Yeah, see, that's proof that they're just playing games. They just match with you because they wanted validation. It's not because they wanted to date you. And so that allows you to convince yourself, see, this is exactly why I shouldn't date in the first place, because it's all a joke. It's all a scam. And it's that thought of absolution that ultimately ruins your dating success. Because I'm here to tell you, and I've said it before on the show, is that one of the ways I started to get better at dating is realizing that the way in which I was and the way in which I looked and the things that I was into, even though I thought women wouldn't like this because I'm just weird or whatever, when I started to see examples out there of other guys that had a similar build and that were into similar things as me getting women, I was like, oh, so I got to just suck up and say it's me. I just don't know how to approach. I don't know how to have certain conversations. I don't know how to not be in my head or be anxious. It really is me. And then I'd ask myself, okay, so then is there a way for me to work on those things to where I can actually like get past being so nervous and anxious and get the results that I want? And I started studying and I started working it out through trial and error. And I started getting on online dating and I started trying to approach women in public and at clubs and at parties. And over time, I was able to kind of realize like the things that I needed to do that would effectively work. But what I didn't say is, well, because I said hi to this one woman and she rejected me, don't say hi to any women ever, right? Because that doesn't get you the results you want. And so this guy, ultimately, my answer for all this is that you're 41, I'm 41. The difference between us is that I'm able to have dating success because I was able to get rid of the idea that all the stuff you said is true. Because the reality is I have seen people meet in public with somebody and talk to them in the cold approach and end up in a long-term relationship. I have seen online dating relationships get to the marriage phase. I have seen people meet up at parties and at clubs and at various other things and meet somebody and you're thinking, oh, it's just going to be a party. It's not anything serious, but those people end up being super serious. Like these are all avenues that you mentioned that people actually meet people on top of the various other ways that I talk about on the show. Networking, joining various classes, really getting into your hobbies and finding a group that enjoys those hobbies, doing meetup groups. Like there are a plethora of ways to meet women. But the problem is when you meet them, you don't know what the next steps are. You're not really understanding that maybe, for example, with online dating, your struggle is you're matching with women that would legitimately connect with you, but then your first couple of messages show that you're not really knowledgeable of women. You're not knowledgeable of what they're looking for in terms of you approaching them. You're maybe sounding needy or desperate. I don't know what your approach is if you're doing online dating, but whatever your setup is in terms of your profile or how you're talking to women, I can guarantee you somewhere in that process is the answer to why you're not having success. If you're saying, well, cold approach doesn't really work for me that often, I'd have to look at, okay, when you're approaching women for the first time, how are you approaching them? Are you coming to them directly? Are you straight telling them, hey, hi, gorgeous, blah, blah, blah? Are you asking them questions? Like, what is your actual opening when you go to do cold approach? If the one that you have now isn't working, you can't say, and therefore cold approach doesn't work because in my view, it works all the time if you know the right way to do it. And so this is why it becomes important. And I think as you get older, you're 41, I'm 41. As we get older, let's face it, we start to get lazier. We get tired of learning new things because our brain is kind of starting to slow down and say, you know what? In our teens and 20s, we had a lot of energy to learn a lot of stuff. And at this age we're at now, the idea that we don't know something and that we have to now learn that and do new knowledge and then practice it and then hopefully maybe get good at it. It's a prospect that admittedly at this age, most of us don't want to do. Like I know I'm 41 and I have to do all the social media stuff for my business. Me having to learn TikTok and how to do like certain types of thumbnails and come up with certain types of shows. Like all that stuff wears me the freak out because I'm at the age where I just want it to be done for me. I'd rather pay somebody. I'm tired. But you know what? I'm seeing success on my YouTube channel. And so I know that doing those things only benefits me. So it's worth me learning. Just like for you, learning relationship skills, learning how to interact with women, learning how to approach them, all these skills, as tiring as it sounds, once you learn them, reading women becomes so much easier once you actually learn the skill set. And I know it might seem like a long row. You could really learn the scope of how to interact with women, talk to them, approach them in these various aspects in a span of like 2 to 3 months, but you have that skill set now for the rest of your life. But it all starts with getting rid of the idea that it's either all or nothing. Nobody's dating and having fun. No women want anybody. All women just want validation. You can keep thinking that, but as Kevin Samuels used to say, you're going to end up having to buy a dog and die alone. Do you want that? If you want a life that you're going to be able to share with somebody and you're going to be able to connect with them and be able to get hookups with somebody that wants to regularly do it with you, then you got to get out of that thought pattern and start thinking about, okay, if this is an absolute truth, that means that there is hope for me to be as successful as the other relationships around me that, even though you might not think that they exist, are actually successful. And that's why I have a whole website. If you need help with that, I am more than happy to provide for coaching, as well as my various programs that help with that kind of stuff. Again, introvertdatingsuccess.com, click the coaching tab or click the products tab, and we can help you start figuring out how to modify your mindset for one, and then also how to really like break down what it's going to take for you to be successful in dating. All right.
You's a bad boy, but you can't stop, won't stop. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high class man. You a high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class.